Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Heal with Kat podcast. My name is Kat, and I am your host, and I'm so excited to welcome you back to the episode. Welcome if you are new. Like I said, my name is Kat. I'm a family constellation therapy facilitator, which is a mouthful. I will be abbreviating this modality and my role as FCT for the duration of this week's episode. I am really, really excited for this week's guest. It is my dear friend, Nikki Norenberg. And Nikki and we got connected in like the weirdest synchronistic ways. And ever since she has entered my life, I feel like my life has been so much more joyful and this really connected friendship that we have where I can just be myself. Like Nikki is one of those people where you can just be yourself around and she just loves and embraces you fully. And really, when I had asked her to come on the podcast and talk about her experience with FCT, we both were like, oh my God, it's been a while. She had a baby. I moved. Like, so many things have happened in both of our lives. But the beautiful thing is that Nikki really shares from the heart what she remembers from her FCT and the impact that it had not only on her life as Nikki, but as mother and wife as well. And what I really truly appreciate about Nikki is her ability to speak right to the heart in a very, very honest way. There's no BS. There is no fluff with Nikki. Nikki is all here and she's so intuitive and she's so wise. So I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this episode. If you have anything that comes up in this episode that you really want to share with somebody, or you feel like somebody in your circle would really resonate with, please continue to share these episodes. We are gaining in views and we are gaining in social traction because you guys are rating, subscribing, and reviewing the episode, which I am so grateful for. I've been putting in so much work to expanding this medium in which I'm speaking in on the podcast in the last month with upgrading all of my content and all of my video and all of my equipment and really coming on consistently every single week. And the only reason that I feel like I'm gaining so much traction is because of you guys. So thank you so much. Stay tuned. At the end of the episode, I share how you can win a free family constellation therapy session. See, it's even a mouthful for me. With me, I announce it on the last day of every single month. I just announced April's winner. I'll be announcing May on May 31st. So I won't talk anymore. I won't ramble anymore. Listen to this week's episode. Nikki will speak to the beauty of this modality, and I would love to hear on social if you liked it. So make sure that you send me a message on Instagram and let me know if it resonated with you. So with that, let's get into the episode. Guys, Nikki Norenberg. Hello, Nikki. Welcome to the Heal with Kat podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited for you to be here. I literally love every moment we get to spend together in and outside of coaching, because we did coaching for a little bit, which I want to touch on that because you've really transformed yourself since becoming a mother. And I kind of got to watch that a little bit through coaching, and we're going to dive into all that stuff today. But I'm just grateful for you being here. Before we dive deep into the conversation that I know we're going to have today, because we were just chatting about this before we hopped on and recorded. We're both active intuitives, right? Like we both are open to receiving what wants to come through this episode today. So I think it's going to make for a really juicy, beautiful episode. But even though I just introduced you on the episode, how would you like people to know who you are in this phase of your life outside of the professionalism that we all get to see?
Oh, wow. I'm like brain fog. It's really interesting, Kat, because I haven't answered. I'm in such a, just for everybody, I am like in complete metamorphosis, transformation. I'm almost 6 months postpartum, and I feel like anybody that has gone through the motherhood portal knows that everything that you once knew is kind of shaken up to the surface. And so I'm still getting to know this version of me. I would say that what I would love for people to know is that in this evolution, I'm witnessing how many pieces of my inner child and my younger self have still maintained and come along for this ride and this journey. It just evolves and looks differently. And I think that now more than ever, every single step in my life makes so much sense. You know, the challenge, the beauty, the success, all of it has led me to this point. And the things that are standing in front of me I'm like, of course, this is what's next and what's upon the horizon for me. And I just feel really excited and really called up in my purpose in this chapter to connect people deeper into themselves via their bodies. Because the bodies have all of the information. And from like a grander perspective, I also am like, it's literally the home of our soul. It is the other side of our experience. It's where the human connects to the spiritual. And so as much as we want to, sit, journal, meditate, all important things, the body is oftentimes the place that actually is going to flush up what we're looking for. And so that's really what this season for me is all about. And, I'm also wanting to showcase that for my son and just how much, movement and in the body and connecting into all of that is important to being who we are as humans. So I guess that's me.
Well, I think between you and Gunther, your husband, who is also in the movement of the body world, like between both of you, I think there's this synonymous kind of like overlapping theme of your lives and how maybe you both are supporting each other, and then how your son will also grow up to see that beautiful example. Do you want to give the listeners a little peek into what this new project and chapter is for you, or
Sure.
do you want to keep it a secret?
Sure. It's interesting. So in my previous work, I hosted a lot of events and experiences through my coaching business. And I always found myself doing some sort of movement. I was like, I want to draw people into their bodies. It was kind of like my form of meditation from an event experience. And then I realized, like, no, this is really something. And as a dancer my entire life, I had the gift of being in that magical expression my entire life. Like, dance has a way of making us feel expressed. It helps us to process emotion. It also helps us to feel connected to our bodies, like so many things. And then the physical part of dance is also a massive benefit, but it was always an afterthought because what brought me to dance was the way that it literally just made me feel so alive and so myself. And as I kind of transitioned out of that world and into more fitness, yes, of course, fitness is powerful, but I always felt like that X factor that dance has was missing for me personally. And so I thought, gosh, I want dancers and non-dancers to be able to access this euphoria, this expression, this like, oh my God, I am myself, I am alive, I am expressed in a really safe container that wasn't a traditional dance class, wasn't a traditional fitness class, but somewhere in between. So it's a mat-based class. It's called Embodied, and it is curated to a very specific playlist. And we go on this like really like up and down journey to dive us into the layers of the self. We experience, some deep emotion. We experience joy. We experience this kind of sense of catharsis and grounding. And so you go for a ride in this journey, but it is my intention for everybody to leave feeling more connected, more themselves, and more alive. And so, yeah, that's what Embodied, this new modality that I've created, is all about. Thanks for asking.
I love it. I actually do the Sculpt Society, by Megan Roop. Have you heard of it before?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
It's basically like Pilates, like mat Pilates with like weights, but it's like a bunch of different like workouts. It's kind of like Melissa Wood Health, but she
Sure.
has dance cardio in the app. So she'll literally
Mm-hmm,
lead you through like a dance cardio for like 15, 20 minutes. And when
mm-hmm,
I do it, it's literally like the euphoria. I feel like I can see you doing something like that with like a mobile platform or an online
mm-hmm,
platform where you're literally guiding women through their bodies in this like very empowered and embodied way, which I think is
mm-hmm,
so many women need, because I think many women in society, they're being pulled out of their bodies. There's social media, there's people pleasing, there's kind of all these different things that we go through as women to leave our bodies, that our bodies aren't safe, our bodies aren't good enough. And so I can totally
mm-hmm.
see how you just being in your body and feeling so safe, and it can be an example for leading other women through that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to have you on the podcast today to not only chat and share you with my community, because you've made such an incredible impact on my life and my business in the last few years, but I want to talk about your experience with Family Constellation Therapy, which we can abbreviate as FCT today, because we really, uh, I'll go back a little bit. When we signed up for business coaching together, had we done our FCT yet, or did we do it right in the middle of it?
Yeah, we did it right in the middle of it, honestly, so I could get a better understanding of your work. And I was like speechless for days after. So, you go in, you're like, oh, I can't wait to like learn more about her business. And I was like, oh, we are changing my life. And now I've got a lot to sit with because her work is going to change the world. Like, I genuinely felt like I needed to take a moment after the session because I was like, oh, this woman is next level, powerful, impactful. Wow.
I'm very grateful for your words. That is really kind of you. And I'm excited to hear and have the audience hear how that happened for you. But had you heard about family constellation therapy before me?
So I had seen it briefly, which I'm sure some people would say the same, on a Goop episode where they did a group experience. And I remember thinking it was the most fascinating thing I had ever seen. And I had so many questions because, like, as an intuitive myself, I'm like, how are other people embodying? And I know everything is possible. And so when you were offering it individually, I was so curious to kind of, I guess, connect the dots between the two and understand in my own body how that can happen.
Yeah. I really want to get to your experience on the papers in a little bit. If I know it was probably almost a year ago that we did our session together, so we'll have to kind of just pull intuitively from what we
Mhm.
remember. I know that we talked about doing FCT together because I wanted you to understand the modality because we were going into business coaching together. And my thought was, hey, if you're going to help me learn how to market my business and build my business, you should probably know what this is because not a lot of
Mhm.
people have heard of it.
Mhm.
Outside of that capacity, was there something going on in your life at the time that you felt like, oh, actually, I do have things that I could use this for, not just of the benefit of hiring on a client to help?
Oh yeah, girlfriend. So I was pregnant, and I don't know if any other pregnant women have experienced this, but all of this just generational stuff was coming up and looking me in the face and just saying, like, are you going to take the effort to heal this, to break the cycle, to create a different reality for your offspring moving forward? And it was honestly, it was very heavy. I was met with a lot of big assignments is what I would say in my pregnancy of just like, yeah, this is the time. Like, we know these things, but now you actually are going to have a child that if your patterns don't break, you're just going to naturally pass it along. So like, let's get in there and do the deep work. And so when you had, brought this FCT forward for me, I think at the time, I had brought forward my money story because I was like starting to realize, oh, this is why this is stuck, or this is what's going on. Because I think I needed to go back and really dig into why I wasn't breaking through certain thresholds in my life and in my business. And I thought FCT was a great place to start because it's definitely money stories are attached to families.
Not only our families, but our worthiness, our relationship to the mother. Worthiness is always tied to our ability to feel successful, to feel worthy of taking up space, to feel like we're enough, to feel that it's safe to be seen. So I know that when we were in business coaching together, you shared with me that you were pregnant, and you shared with me that around the year before you got pregnant with Sully, you went from feeling like life was very expansive to really honing in on this like inward energy. And I'm personally like really curious to hear about this outside of maybe talking about FCT, just talking about motherhood, because I feel personally like motherhood is literally right around the corner for
Mhm.
me. And I'm like, I can already feel in the last few months of my life this like boundaries needing to go inward, not expending my energy too much, like really just focusing in and kind of at the expense of some of my closest relationships in my life. I just don't want to be taking on more than I can chew emotionally. So I'm curious to know if that's what it was like for you, and just share your experience with that if you feel open and ready.
Yeah, great question. What's coming through for me to share is that becoming a mother is the greatest expansion of yourself, but also of your capacity. And with this brand new capacity of holding more and also creating a life for another human being, requires you to get really, really clear on what you have space, time, energy for in life everywhere. And I think that when we are, pre-children, there is this freedom because we're really living through our own experience, our own vessel. It's for us, it's for, our clients, the world, our friends. But then when we become parents, there's this divine responsibility that we have for another human being. And it also is taking 10 times more energy and effort from the self to raise, support, and love that human being. And we simply don't have as much energy to give to other things that we used to. And so I believe that this really internal time is to cut the noise and start to create boundaries and get really clear about, like, we need to go in specific direction for the life that you want to have and for, the childhood you want to create. And you can't be saying yes to everything. It was the first time that I really feel like I started to be like, oh, I need to start saying no way more. Like, I need to create way bigger boundaries for myself. And I would say it's a really big blessing because it's given me the opportunity to get clearer on people, on, what's most important to me and why, and also what I want to build and create. Like, I'm an MG in human design. I can do 1,000 different projects if people invite me, ask me, if I get like inspired by an idea. And I realized I can no longer do that. If it's not moving toward this vision of embodied, it is a no for me, because this is the purpose that I know that I'm meant to have while I am also raising my son. And I have to get really clear that my efforts have to go toward that. And so it's really allowed for me to streamline my life. And I also think that, to your point about like going inward, it's that deep inner work, the generational things that are attached to our family and lineage that will pass to our offspring. And so it's giving us an opportunity to again say, is it coming, or are you stopping it and reprogramming it now? So it's really just this clarifying period in your
Mm.
life. And I think that there's also some grief with that. There's definitely a process of missing things as they go, but then also having such gratitude that there's finally something almost forcing you to make these really challenging choices in your life, because you have to. You don't have all that you used to. It's just being repurposed in different ways.
And did you find that happened like the year before you got pregnant, or was that kind of a little bit before, and then the like the 10 months you were pregnant, was it like preparing you, or was it like in the cocoon of it?
Carrot dangle, I would say, would be the year prior. Was
Okay.
like I was starting to realize things were feeling a little off, and I was confused. Honestly, I was confused. And then I started getting a lot of divine connection to my son through like being his spirit baby essence. And then I was like, oh, so this is my next chapter. That's why I'm feeling confused. But then it was when I was actually pregnant with him, when he was in my body for that, 9-10 months, that the really deep inner work and the challenging decisions started to come through. And it continues to be that way as he's here earthside, because your girl has way less time. And we just get to be really specific about what we want. And I think that that's a gift.
It really is. I love that you were able
Mm-hmm.
to really open your heart, your mind, and your body to just receiving him and preparing yourself for that. I know we talked about you saying that there's something specific about the money story that drew you to FCT. And really with the money story, like I said, it's a lot of it's dealing with motherhood. A lot of it's dealing with like any potential money trauma in the family system. Take me through your biggest kind of aha moments from the first part of the session where we were kind of
Mm,
unpacking things before we got into the field, because we do a little talk
mhm,
therapy before. Tell me if you
yeah.
remember anything from that and what you do remember.
Gosh, I think I had visited my money story before and I kind of understood it, but I feel like the way that you ask questions, I was able to actually go back further and further and even look at like my parents' parents and think about the lifestyle that they constructed. And I would say like my family doesn't have any like big like red flag money situations, if you will. It's all very like energetic in the way that work is perceived and that work needs to look a certain way, very structured and very like acceptable. And then also on the other side, this like lack, hold on to kind of energy that I have witnessed come through. And so they're kind of put all this expectation that I realized around myself um, to follow suit. And then, even in the witnessing of me leaving my corporate job, which was very like programmed in me that I needed to be, and I became this like free spirited entrepreneur. Even in the construction of my business, I created my own corporate America of inevitably. The way that I structured it, I was like, oh my God, I am back to sitting at a desk from 9 to 5 all day long on my computer. So, it's just very interesting to witness how these things, even though you think you're making these choices, which could be, yes, a notch further toward alignment, how quickly we come back to this safety of what we feel is safe and known according to our systems.
Yeah.
The
So that actually brings up something really interesting that I want to talk about, because what you're saying to me actually sounds like your relationship to belonging in your family based on your money story. So
Mm,
belonging is like this really deep need that we have as children in family systems until we become old and gray, where we feel like we need to stay connected to the family system. And sometimes we will do that even if it's not in our highest and best good. And it's largely based off like old programming, old beliefs, things that we were used to growing up. Tell me about your relationship then with belonging when it comes to the FCT.
mm. So one of the most eye-opening parts for me when I stood on the piece of paper, um, which I will say, like as an intuitive myself, I was trying to like rig the system, and I was like, "Oh, this is definitely me. This is definitely my dad." Trying to do it,
Because
and I was wrong
I
on
do
all of
them
them.
right. Because for the listener, I do them blind. So you don't know what piece of paper you're standing on. It's literally just like you don't know what family member you are. So anyways, I just want to preface with that.
Right. Yeah. And so anyway, so the piece of paper that was at the very front of the system, I had laid horizontal, but then when I stood on it, I just naturally stood on it forward facing. And what I love about FCT is that nothing is a coincidence. Everything has intention. So every tiny detail means something, which I think, on a side note, is very impactful, taking that wisdom into life and trusting that the littlest things are actually very big if we allow them to be a message for us. But by me facing forward, you had pulled out of me that, you know, this is the energy that I'm stuck in my life and with my family, is that I want to belong and I want to be accepted by them and loved by them and seen by them, which is the horizontal nature of the paper. But I have always been different than them. And that has been something that I have prided myself in and also really struggled with. And that was me facing forward. This symbolization of, I am this cycle breaker. I am the person in my family that is here to do things differently, but I still teeter on wanting to be exactly like them because I love them and I respect them. And I think that this is 100% the push pull that I feel is I want to be, honestly, I want to be respected. I am just realizing that in this very moment is I want them to respect me. I want them to respect the choices that I make that look nothing like them and the things that they may not understand, but I want to be respected.
Do you find that if you go against respecting yourself and fulfilling your own desires, that keeps you tight with them? Keeps you
It's a
connected?
great question. Yeah, I think that there's so much familiarity, like the world that they live in, everybody kind of is in the same energy. So when I come in with a different energy to them, it almost feels, I don't want to put words in their mouths. I don't want to, but it's like wrong. And so sometimes if I feel, let's say, insecure or not trusting of a decision that I'm making, and then I'm conversing with my family to receive support, it's really easy for me to use their way as a way to keep me safe. But then when I go about it that way, it feels out of alignment. So I'm constantly coming back to this place of trusting myself and honestly trying my best not to run to my family when I need advice or support and moving to them after I have made a conscious choice that aligns with my soul, which I think is a really challenging thing to do. When you're close with your family, you talk to them often, it's easy to just kind of bring them into the flush of what's happening. And, being reminded, Gunther always tells me, when my mom tells me something I don't want to necessarily hear, he's like, but she's your mom and she's hearing that you need support and help. So she's trying to solve that for you. And I don't want to hear what she has to say because it's not what I would do. So it's really this almost inner control of coming to my own solutions and my own safety before really putting it into my family unit.
But this is exactly what it looks like to heal enmeshment. And the enmeshment that we were addressing together just happened to be around the money story and then a bunch of other things that came off of that because we're really never actually dealing about the money story. We're usually
Right.
dealing with the beliefs, the patterns, the behaviors, and any kind of traumas that happened. But healing enmeshment in a family system based on a pattern or a belief or a choice or a decision, the journey of healing the enmeshment is not, okay, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm going in this direction, I healed it, I'm done. It's a lot of like, I want to go here, but I have to remember I'm going this way. And developmentally, there's a point in our lives where we have to learn to trust ourselves. And there is that healthy detachment from the family system. It doesn't mean that it takes away from the love, but if we're lacking in feeling that love that we need and the support that we need from our families in the way that we need it, then we will use these small entanglements to kind of stay connected with them. Rather than if your mom potentially shifted her perspective and said, Nikki, I believe in you. You can figure this out. If you need advice, I'll be here for you, but I believe in you, rather than trying to solve it for you, then you would be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I can trust myself. I can healthily detach from the situation and I know where to go. But if mom is keeping you in that kind of enmeshment, then it's going to be hard for you to want to leave because obviously you want your mom's love. So it's this
Mm-hmm.
battle between the adult self and the inner child self where we're just like constantly pushing and pulling. And I think it's so honest for you to share that. And I'm so grateful that you did. We did touch a lot on your mom in the session and kind of the
Mm-hmm.
reflection between you and your mom. And so I would love to hear whatever wisdom you have to share around that specifically,
Mm-hmm.
because I think so many women are subconsciously staying enmeshed in certain things with their mothers, searching for that validation, that love, that enoughness, that acceptance, and that connection. And it's actually holding them back. And it doesn't even look that harmful sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. So my mom and I have just our whole entire lives had, a challenging relationship. I think personality wise, we have very similar personalities, but we kind of butt heads a lot. And I think she has admitted, many times of trying to control the way that I do things and the way that I express. And I think that comes from her safety. And I've known that. But what was really, really, really like life changing, eye opening, even when I told Gunther, he started tearing up kind of shit. Uh, in the FCT session, when I was standing on the front paper and I turned around because I was like, I feel the energy of the paper behind me. And I turned around and I burst into tears. And I was like, what is happening? And I heard the whisper of like, oh, hi, honey. And it was so warm and endearing. And I literally thought it was my dad because of the present day
Oh, yeah.
relationship my dad and I have. And then when I stood on the back paper, I was convinced it was me. I was like, I wanted to be like big and expressed and in my body. And it felt so like, like all of this energy. And then when we came back together and you were like, no, Nikki, that was your mom. I was in shock. It's making me feel emotional right now because I was like, oh my God, I think that our relationship has its challenges because I think I represent all of the parts of my mom that she was never able to express, whatever that means. Maybe that was in her societal programming of her family system or in her experience of, confidence and expression and self-acceptance. But I realized that, I see so many glimmers of myself in my mom, but there's also some resistance and some control that comes up. And I just think also the baby boomer generation has a lot of that just from their upbringing as well. But I realized that, oh, my mom sees herself in me in the parts she never let flourish. And so all of a sudden I got this rush of compassion and greater understanding of what my role in this lineage is that I am meant to carry this expressiveness, this confidence, this wanting to serve others, which my mom also deeply does in a different capacity. But I'm carrying that out in a bigger way because my lineage is meant to create a massive impact in history. And I think that I'm ushering it forward with being able to express myself. And my mom could see that, and she doesn't know this, by the way. But I think that I am that symbol for her.
Well, it sounds to me like your mom passed down a beautiful generational gift.
Mm.
And with that gift came some of her own trauma and her own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, you took the gift with the stuff. And then that stuff has been battling it out, duking it out your whole life
Mm-hmm.
until you were in
Mm-hmm.
a place where you could say, I'm going to take the gift and I'm going to give back the stuff I don't need to take with it anymore. And I'm going to honor
Mm-hmm.
you through this gift. I'm going to channel you through this gift. I'm going to share it with the world in the way that you may have wanted to share it in a different way. Right. And like that is really the emotional maturity that we need to go through in healing this ancestral stuff is I'm going to take the gifts. I don't need to carry the painful stuff just because I love you. That is not love. The love is
Mm.
taking the gift and allowing that. And also vibrationally in a family system, we share these chords, this vibration. Every family system has a vibration and they're like little cells. Every single family on this planet has a vibration. They're little cells that make up like the way that spirit shows me is like the world. And every single vibration ripples out into like another one. What you're doing, that joy and all of that, that healing that you're taking with that generational gift, it's rewriting that story to create a different vibration in the family system. So even though your mom may not tangibly understand it, feel it, or know it in this lifetime, on some perspective, on some level, it rippled out into her. And I wouldn't be surprised if energetically something did shift for her in her life when you did that, because you chose to reclaim the gift in a way that was loving rather than reclaiming the gift in a way that feels confusing or suppressive or not clear.
Yeah, thank you. And I think what's really interesting and what's just coming through is even like looking back behind my mom and looking to my grandma, like it goes so far back, this gift that's passed through and it's channeled in different capacities. And I think what's really beautiful and, to bringing this back now to children is that I get to also pass this gift on to my children who are also meant to bring this through in their own way. And I think seeing it as this, it's just a divine assignment. It's like we are all meant to create impact. And I think that there is something that is passed through lineages and there is power and history in that. And I think, what a what a blessing to be cognizant of it in that capacity instead of seeing it as like a burden or something that needs fixing. It's more just like how can my soul create space to allow for this to flourish?
Did you feel any resistance before, during, or even after the FCT together around your relationship with your mom? And maybe even more specifically during and after with this gift of acknowledging these things about her? Was there any resistance in you in embracing it?
You know, I don't think so. I've done quite a bit of like mother wound type work. So I've like, her and I have really developed much better communication. I think that my biggest takeaway from this was to, in my eyes, take away the fact that she is my mother and see her as a human being and pick out the parts of her that I witness are hitting up against that resistance wall and try to call them forward, try to call them up with love and with nurturance, to invite more confidence in her abilities. And I think that that's just a really interesting place to be in life in general, is when you reach a certain point in your life when you're like, yes, these are my parents, and I can set that title away for a moment and witness their human beingness and their inner child, and see the parts that I can call up and talk to and help support heal. Because I also feel like, that saying where it's like our parents' ceiling becomes our floor and we are continuing to crawl upward. And so being able to say, hey, I know that what your awareness is now my floor. And I have all of this awareness that I can, while you're still in this body, in this life, I can try to call you up to your comfortability, because, they can only expand as much as they're willing. But I think that I have just gained a much broader perspective of where my mom and I trigger each other and how I can kind of be the nurturing person to invite those pieces of her forward.
Which is so beautiful. My next question was going to be, how do you feel that your mom has been in service to you and your
Mm,
purpose? But it almost sounds like you answered it. But doesn't that question bring
mm.
anything else up for you?
I think that our challenge is 1000% part of my purpose, because for me, it's about trusting myself. And I think that that's also why I'm in my family system, is that I think that my biggest task in life is to wholeheartedly trust myself and move from that unapologetic space
Mm.
in fullest expression. And if if my family was super supportive of that and like nurtured that, I wouldn't be able to use that as my purpose tool, because I'm continuing to butt heads with it in all different areas of my life, and coming back to this place of like, how much do you trust yourself? And that's my life's work, because I need to also, or I get to bring that to other people. Is like, no, we are here to be ourselves and to trust ourselves and to be the most unique freaking unicorns possible. And I think that we have to have some resistance and some challenging in order for us to really test and become the version that does. Otherwise, it would be way too easy. And like, life is here to be a learning playground. And so I feel very blessed that my family has really challenged and stretched me in this way, because it has literally put me on my purpose path. And I also feel that in whatever way, shape, or form that I can make that impact back to my family, I think I've already made a difference in just showing them that life can look differently. Not that they're going to live differently, but they're just like opening their minds. I have opened their minds a ton, and I just think that it all comes back to why I'm here, right? At the end of the day, it's all toward your assignment.
I had full body chills the entire time that you were talking, because not only are the words so beautiful, but you can feel the energy of how much you believe in that. And I think that that is like if that could be like dream client status, like that's dream client status. When you work with somebody
Right.
who is like, I know that I have a purpose, that I know like I'm meant to do these amazing things in life, but I have these blocks and I know that they come from my family and I'm ready to put those down because the absolute motivation is amazing. And the other day I was literally talking to Tyler, and I'm like in a very interesting place with a mother wound in my life. And I have been battling getting to a place with the mother wound that I find peace and acceptance and love and for whatever,
Mm.
for my own mom. And I had this amazing call with someone who basically said, you know, who do you channel in your work? We talked about Mother Mary. And this light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, the only reason that I am so warm and nurturing and loving and so like Mother Mary energy is because of the mother wound. Had I not ever experienced that, I would not be filling my life with this fulfillment and this joy in my mind, my body, and my spirit to be doing this work for others and serving as a nurturing, loving Mother Mary energy for clients, which is what makes me me. And that feels so grounded in me being me. So it literally a couple days ago, it was the aha moment of I needed that stuff to happen. I accept it now. I accept my mom now. I accept the entire situation. And it's almost like the anger, the frustration, the what ifs, the question marks, they all just dropped. And I was like, oh, duh. I chose her because she knew she was going to help me do this. And then I broke down in tears because I was like, that's the mother. That's the mother. My mom doesn't maybe know she's doing this, but her soul, I believe, knew, hey, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be these things that come up. And whatever you are, or Kat, me as a soul, this person who's going to serve as your mom in this lifetime is going to be the perfect challenge for you to embody who you're meant to be. And when I was listening to you talk, I just kept feeling like you were kind of this ping pong ball, just like kind of going up, up, up. Like the family was kind of just like resistance, resistance, resistance. And you were just like, no, I'm going to keep going up because you're pushing me. And yes, if you look to the side, they may look like blocks, but if you look up and you look towards towards the future, towards what you're working towards, your family's actually pushing you. You're using the momentum of your family to go up. The way that you described it was so visually clear for me. So I love, love, love to hear that, because I do think that the pinnacle of clarity after FCT is realizing, oh my God, my family's been in service to me my whole life.
Well, and I think, you can think big picture and think soul contract. My mom and I have a different soul contract than my mom and my sister, but it's all in service to where we're headed in life and what our big, big takeaways are. And I think that, growth in life can look like, empowering, self-development experiences where we're being stretched and it's stretchy and it feels good, but it also is oftentimes served through massive discomfort, sometimes pain. And I think that it's those things that give us the most oomph, is like the word that I want to use, like the most momentum to want to do something completely different. Because if it were any gentler, we might not move. And so when there's something that feels so misaligned, I think that there is such purpose to that, because it's forcing you to go into the opposite direction, closer to what aligns. And that's the momentum that's actually taking you forward in your life.
I love it. I would love to talk about, well, is there anything else specifically in the session you want to talk about? Because I'm kind of going to go outside of the session now, but I want to chat if there's anything else in the session.
No, let's rip.
Okay. So you're post FCT. You've realized my mom and I are similar, and now I'm carrying this gift, and what am I going to do with it? I'm pregnant and being, mirrored all of these things that I need to heal. I'm seeing the enmeshment of where I'm still belonging to my family in ways that are keeping me stuck. I mean, you're having all these aha moments. You're post FCT. What's going through your head? how are you implementing this? How are you processing this? Like, what was that journey like for you? Because I know it can be a lot sometimes after an FCT.
Yeah. Well, so I was, funny enough, I'm almost positive that I did it right before I went home for the summer. And so I was really
Yeah.
cognizant of, okay, how can I start to see this and embody this in real life? And there was also some things like around my dad, because my dad kind of hit this, retirement purpose slump. And I just thought again, okay, I have a role in this family to move people forward, move people along, and help them to see like what is available to them and like how amazing they all are beyond what society has created. So it was really, for me, I became a massive observer when I lived there and tried to not get as triggered and to just see things from that fuller bird's eye view perspective of my family system, and then see where I could enter in as that leader at the front of my system, to support their soul's evolution in some capacity. And I actually had a really like life-changing conversation with my father after all of this. I realized like I can usher him further into his purpose in this chapter of his life. And I had to also sit down you're my dad, I'm the daughter, you're usually the one that comes in and supports me. And I was like, no, I'm the perfect person to see all layers and parts of him. And so it gave me honestly this responsibility that I think prior to our session, I think I felt a little bit heavy with, like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. Really? And after the session, I felt really empowered by it. I felt like, wow, I have been chosen and I have the consciousness, the awareness, the power to support all of the people in my family and all of the people that we touch and all of the generations moving forward. And so to kind of step in, not from a sense of I'm the youngest child, I need your help, I don't know what I'm doing, support me, but from a place of I know exactly who I am. And I know that I am here to help all beings feel more themselves. So why can't I support my family in that? And
Mm.
so I think taking the ownership and responsibility from that place was the most impactful, hands down.
Do you feel that that's the moment you realized you are the cycle breaker of your family? And if so, what is that experience like realizing that?
It was not the first time. I've had many just like logical understandings and like a quite psychedelic visual that happened during breath work that was very clear that that's my role. But the way that FCT implements it though is it like binds the human with the spiritual so well. And I just felt like with all of the awareness that I had, something in that moment just clicked for me.
Mm.
And I just, I think that with FCT, you're in embodiment when you're channeling on those pieces of paper. So you can feel the experience of yourself, of your family members. And it just is so much more real and so much more tangible that when you step away, you could be there again in a heartbeat. It's not just in here, it's in your body. So I think it was really confirming and allowed for me to actually take physical embodied steps toward acting differently.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful way to put it because it is, for me, FCT, the reason why I love getting in sessions and still using this modality for myself and my life is when you're on the paper, you literally are experiencing without a shadow of a doubt that you're feeling something, that something is not you, but you know with a certainty inside of you that you have a relationship to the other papers around you, and you know for certain how you feel on that paper, whether the paper is like, you don't feel anything, or whether you know that you feel grief or you feel sadness. And so it is very confirming to be on the paper. And why I like working with papers and I'm not so motivated by learning how to do it with people, like if people were the
Mhm.
representatives, because I think there's something incredibly deeply important of the client themselves being in that energy to understand this is how my mom felt rather than watching it happen, which I'm not discrediting in-person representatives because I've done that before, and I think it's really interesting to look at how everything is happening outside of you. But there is something about living with it in you that you're like, oh my God, like I thought this paper was my mom and it was me. And I am so humbled by my experience with my mom now that I can't judge her, because if I'm judging her, I'm judging myself.
In any self-development you hear, like when it comes to manifestation and becoming like the version of ourselves we want to be, they're saying you have to be it first, feel it first. And I think in the like r- backwards way, we feel that's how we heal, is when we can feel the transmission, the transmutation of something else, because we recognize, oh, I wouldn't want to feel that, or oh, wow, that's really eye-opening. And I think that, again, coming back to the body as the most wise divine vessel is because it's where our soul actually communicates through. And I think, to your
Mhm.
point, having the client do it versus witnessing it with your eyes, feeling it in your body, is something you will never forget.
Never. I mean, every single FCT that I have done, I mean, it just blows my mind every time. Like, and I facilitate this work for a living. And when I get on my own papers or when I watch someone else do a session, I'm like, I do not know how I do what I do, but it is so fucking badass. I can't even like wrap my head around the fact that you stand on a paper and you get information and it's just truth. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Um, I would love to know how you see yourself taking this information that you learned about your family and now that you are a mother, implementing it
Mhm.
into a new story and a new image for your family system based on what you know now.
Mm. Well, so I think that, having a very, very young son, he's still so little, but I
He's
know
so
he is
cute.
thank you. I think so too. But he is a sponge. Children are sponges. I mean, human beings are sponges. And I know that for me, I really want to walk the walk, talk the talk of trusting myself. Gunther and I even say it, him and I will be in dialogue inside casually in our home. And I'm like, pretty soon we're going to have ears that understand what we're saying. And even if we're not saying anything bad, but the way we say it, it can still be taken differently. I think that um, just really witnessing and ensuring that I am fully an embodiment of making choices that I feel like are in alignment with my soul, moving from that place. And also, showing that you can do what you love as a woman and, make a living and impact a ton of people and still have a very well balanced life. I am determined to do so, because I know that that just means that I am living out what I'm here to do. It's not just
Mm,
for success. It's just that I have grasped the assignment and moved through the blocks of not trusting or holding back my fullest expression. And it means that I'm fully embodied in who I'm here to be. And so um, I think that it happens through the time. It's so funny. I had this conversation with my higher self, like middle of my very early postpartum journey. And I said, how do I get to be my highest self every day? And she says, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Literally, it's just you try again, you try again, you try again,
mm,
because it's in the micro decisions, it's in the pause before you do, before you speak, that the shifts happen. It's not this blah metamorphosis that happens overnight. It's literally in the tiniest moments. And so I'm committed to those.
Oh, I have full fucking body chills. That was so good. Your wisdom is literally like, I'm just like, grace me with more because it's so uplifting. I'm just here for all of it. Do you feel that your money story did shift and change as a result of the FCT, or was it more focused on the aha moments you had that the money story really actually felt like the maternal lineage and your relationship with your mom?
Great question. I do feel that my big takeaways were these like relational things within my family, but I think at the end of the day, money story included, it comes back to trusting myself and trusting my gifts and coming to a place of believing that those are meant to be energetically exchanged, because money is just an energy that is exchanged. And I think it's definitely a work in progress, because I shut down my entire business and I'm starting from zero scratch. And so I think that as I'm entering into this next chapter of my evolution and my impact, I'm witnessing when old things come up and I'm like, okay, that clearly didn't get you anywhere last time. So like, let's try again and let's move about this with a different energy and a different focus. And I think what's interesting about this chapter, where I'm kind of starting from a blank slate, is I don't feel like I'm carrying any of the old energy with me. There is a beauty of like the pivot, because yes, those things are still with me and part of me. And I think that having new energy to be ushering into is just inviting this more playful, experimental, less expectation driven energy. So yeah.
So old you meaning the coach, the business coach, the corporate coach, kind of like the coaching world. That's what you're leaving behind for this embodiment chapter of like really listening to the wisdom of the body through the body.
hmm Yeah, because I
Wow.
also think that, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely love coaching. And I think at some point in time in my life, I will be back in that space in some way. But I am a soul that needs to be in my body every day, in energy, feeling that in like a fully expressed way. Like I'm in my body right now talking to you, and it's still not the bigness that I want to feel and experience. And so I think for me, it was really like, okay, the energy of my soul on a day to day basis needs to look different, because I think that that's also where I get my best ideas, is when I'm in my body. So,
Mm.
yeah.
It's so inspiring for someone like me to hear you say all of this stuff with the embodiment vision that you have for yourself, because I know I've shared this briefly with you, but I danced on and off for like 12 years. And I never really felt safe to fully express myself. And I never felt
Mm-hmm.
safe to take up that space. But I have this deep yearning in me to be that. And so I do this silly dance cardio in my basement for like
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 minutes. But because no one's watching me, I can be that bigness and I can take up that space, and just the wisdom that comes through. And so I can only imagine that being with someone like you, who does create such a warm and loving and nurturing space to be big, because you are so big, it gives us the
Mm-hmm.
permission to be big and to take up that space. And I just think you are so divinely aligned with yourself, just watching you as a friend from the outside. It's so beautiful to watch you grow through motherhood, and how beautiful that your soul chose the family you did, the motherhood journey that your soul chose, your partner, your career, to continue to teach your soul the beauty of trusting yourself. And I think that so many women can lean on that. How do you know when you're trusting yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What does it feel like?
It feels very neutral. I think that sometimes when I get a knowing, or when I get, a download or something, and I'm not sure, it's like, if it's intuition or is it worry. That's a very, very common curiosity, is like, how do I know if it's my intuition or if it's worry? And it's like, if you have gotten on an inner roller coaster and started spinning around into scenarios, into what ifs, into energy, pause, because
Mm.
now you're on the worry train, and it clouds the vision or the feeling of if that is your truth. But I feel that truth is very neutral feeling, because it's your body's almost nod, and it doesn't need to be more performative than that. And I think, of course, there are moments where we feel like giddy and butterflies. That's energy. But I think that when you know truth and when we consider knowing, it is like but of course, energy. It is neutral. So that's when I feel truth. Um, and I think that that's why it's hard to witness, is because we're like, that's it. Shouldn't there be something after that? A couple bells and whistles? And I think that it's being still and silent and open enough to be like, oh, the neutral is actually a yes.
Well, I think sometimes being in the intuitive space and constantly using this muscle, right? The journey that we've been on is the intuition is usually the soft whisper, and the
Uh-huh.
worry or the ego is usually the loud, hey,
Yeah.
hey, hey. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so I love that you're expressing this truth that trust is a soft whisper. It's a soft feeling, but yet it's a knowing inside of you, which is not soft. It's like strong. I
Mm-hmm.
had someone teach me recently that you think from your head, you feel from your heart, and then you know from your gut. And if you place your
Mm.
hand on each part of that body, you will literally tap into that energy of each thing. And I love that that knowing just comes from that centered part within. So that's a really beautiful
Mm-hmm.
way that I love that you describe that. Okay, so my last question is, if you could give anybody advice about their hesitancy, fear, disbelief, or curiosity about family constellation therapy, what would that advice be?
It is truly the most integrative experience out there, because it blends the world of what feels like therapy, where your logical processing mind gets a seat at the table, but then it also brings your soul and your spirituality forward, but in a really accessible way. Because yes, you're channeling in all of the deep wisdom, but it's also just asking people to pay attention to what's happening in their bodies, and they don't necessarily witness that that's divine channeling. And so I would say it's the most integrated, um, approachable way to step into your healing journey. And it also leaves you with a lot of ahas and takeaways. And also, you never forget the way that you feel when you stand on those papers. And so I think beyond any of the other really powerful modalities out there, I feel like this is a powerful way to blend all of them together to actually leave you walking away with an impact, an energetic shift, and steps forward. I think it's one of the most powerful things people can literally do for themselves.
Thank you. Those are beautiful words to the modality
Yeah.
itself. I am so grateful for the wisdom that you shared over the last hour. I mean, it is really just beautiful to get a peek into the thoughts of Nikki Norenberg. Is there anything you want to leave our community with before we sign off? How can they connect with you? What do they have to look forward to with your work? What else?
Yeah. So I'm currently teaching embodied in Austin in real life, in person. But I'm hoping to start teaching embodied online, because I know that this modality is going to touch and impact so many. And so stay tuned for online. Otherwise, I'm pretty active on Instagram. So at Nikki.Norenberg is the handle. But yeah, there's just going to
I'll
be
link
so
it in the
much
show
movement.
notes.
Yeah, great. But there's just movement coming to a city near you.
Yay, I'm so excited. If you ever want to host one in Denver, I mean, I can think of so many people and places where we could host you for a little thing in Denver, and then I can snuggle solely
Yeah,
and meet you, because like we haven't
I
even met
know.
in person. It was really
I
weird.
know.
So
I
weird.
know. I know. Well, and that's just another thing
But
too, is I just feel like if there's anybody listening, or any like big groups where you feel like this kind of movement transformation would go well with your event or your company or your organization or your friends, I just feel like it's a really it's a cool connector to self, but also to your community. So would love to come to
Yay.
Denver and squeeze ya.
Yay. Yay. I have some other thoughts I'll share with you too after the podcast. But thank you so much
Okay.
for coming on and talking about everything. And guys, if you liked this week's episode, please rate, subscribe, and review. If you listen on Spotify and you can't review, go to YouTube and leave me a comment. Screenshot it and send it to me, because every month I am giving away a free family constellation therapy session to somebody who rates, subscribes, and reviews and sends it to me on Instagram. All the handles will be below. So go ahead, send it to me, send some love, and I'll send you some love back. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.